everybody. Welcome to our first, I don't know what you call this, a videocast or whatever, but I have just been thinking a lot about the fact that this is Wellness Month, National Wellness Month, August. And so I wanted to talk to some of my colleagues and friends and former students who happen to be experts in the field of wellness, and maybe give you guys some insights into how to handle this pandemic, how to handle your artistry at this time. And so today, I'm really excited. I get to introduce Amy Burdick. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she has a specialty in EMDR, which is a trauma-based therapy. And I'm just really excited just to talk to her. Hey, Amy. Hello. Good to see you. So welcome to our very first videocast. That's what I'm calling it. I don't know if that's even a word.
Yeah, that's
good. Okay, sounds good. I just wanted to ask you specifically, as somebody who is both an actor and a therapist, in what are some of the issues that you think people are coming up against in regards to this prolonged pandemic? Like, how is it different now that we realize we're going into 6 months now?
Oh my gosh,
6 months of, social distancing, 6 months of maybe, depending on your circumstances, really quarantining, lack of connection, which is a little bit different than what it was when we were in the first week, the second week, the third week. And maybe you could talk to the differences of how our bodies process that, and maybe some of the things that maybe we need to switch our mindsets now that we're going into the 6th month. Maybe we need to change a little bit just to stay mentally focused, healthy, happy.
Yeah.
Maybe we could be happy at this time, even though it's a really tough time.
I think that's a great question. I think at the beginning, it was a natural response to go into either survival or hunker down mode, right? Like, it's a natural thing in our body. Our survival system will go off and it will tell us, it's okay, we can hold this for a certain amount of time. It's almost like holding your breath underwater, right? You feel like, I can do this. But then you assume you can come up for air, and when that actually doesn't allow you, you start to feel your body go into a panic mode. And so I think what I'm noticing, even in my clients and friends, even in my own work by myself, is my body is starting to respond to the longevity of this pause through the pandemic. And so what symptoms you can notice are mimicking COVID. I can't tell you how many people I know, myself included, that have sometimes wondered, am I getting sick? My lymph nodes are swollen. I start to feel hot. My heart starts racing. Maybe my voice gets raspy. And so you might start to notice stress symptoms mimicking that, because we're not actually really connected to our bodies. Mm-hmm. And I think our brain it's amazing what our body's intended to do. It's intended when there's threat to kind of clog, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later about brain fog, but clog our executive functioning. Yeah. And so we don't think as clearly. And so right now we might be feeling a little bit sad. Maybe we don't know if we're feeling depressed. We don't know if we're anxious. We don't know if we're sick, and we don't know when it's going to end. And so we have to begin to adjust to a long-term strategy that allows us to be more present versus responding out of places of panic.
Yeah. You said, whether you're sad or depressed, what would you say the difference is between being sad or being depressed? How do I know if I'm sad or I'm depressed, and why does it matter?
So depression is a clinical issue, and it's pervasive, meaning it's across the board. There's not a specific reason why you're feeling sad or depressed. It just is. Usually there can be a generational component, or there can be a chemical component, but pervasive means it just happens regardless of situation. It can ebb and flow. Sadness is a direct, natural response to a situation, whether it's something ambiguous that, to like this loss we're going through, or a loss of a loved one, etc., relationship.
Or a pandemic.
Or a pandemic, right? Sadness is normal to respond to. I'm losing time with friends. I might be struggling financially. I may not know when I'm going back to work. Doesn't it seem normal to be sad about those experiences? It's prolonged because we don't know, which is why we need to find other ways to lift ourselves up in the midst of this prolonged period, but it's normal. Totally normal.
So, how would you treat sadness differently than you would, say, a depression? And can could a depression be triggered maybe by this extended period of loss and unknowing and difficulty?
Sadness needs to be experienced.
Yes, it does, right?
So process is a big word I use a lot in my therapy. Processing can mean just actually naming and labeling, like labeling affect, labeling feelings. We do this as actors all the time. I mean, that's what calling behavior is. Sometimes we're tired after class, but we'll also feel relieved because we named what was going on inside of us. So grieving,
Maybe
acknowledge,
having a good cry?
having a good cry. If you don't know if like you can connect to it safely on your own, put on a movie. I've even told some people as actors and other creatives that I know, live in the world of some of these stories. If you feel like unsafe or unable to connect to it, or it feels too scary, at least have some release in
Yeah,
some way.
right. Like if you don't feel comfortable connecting to your own sorrow, oftentimes we give ourselves permission to be sad for other people before we give ourselves permission to be sad for ourselves, right?
That's such a good way to put it.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then what kind of things do you suggest if, you're continually coming up against that grief? Are there things that you recommend people do to kind of process that grief and maybe
Mhm.
even some things that they can do to feel better?
Such a good question. If you're able to, whether it's from a telehealth app to your medical insurance, finding therapy or counseling, even for a short period of time, I recommend minimum 6 to 8 weeks. I would recommend 6 months just because it actually gives us time as humans to open up. But even if you're just needing some period and some tools, like if you're doing short-term therapy, ask for specific solutions for what you're going through. Other things, if that's not an option, would be, I mean, I know that this is going to sound kind of just everyone talks about it, but mindful meditation or mindfulness. There's one great app I want to recommend to everyone. It's called Breathwork. It's free. It's Breath, WRK, and it teaches you, it's not meditation, it just teaches you how to use your breath, whether you need to wake up and be energized versus if you need to slow down or go to sleep. There's different breath patterns that help our actual system.
Yeah,
So,
I actually did a little Tuesday tip about breath work and the
ooh,
difference between like breathing through the left nose versus the
mhm.
right side of your nose and everything. It's amazing how, the sinuses are all connected to what's going on in our brains. It's
Gosh.
amazing. It's
It
amazingly
really,
helpful.
you will feel the difference, which is what
Right.
I would tell my clients. There's one breath technique where I'm like, you will physically feel your heart rate slow
Right.
down. How helpful is that?
I mean, we use it in acting sometimes when, like, if we need to slow it down or if we need to amp it up.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to be amped up. And so we use breath work in order to get our bodies and to get our emotions feeling however we need to do it for the scene. So if it works for acting, it should work for life too,
My
right?
gosh, it's like a muscle where it can feel hard at the beginning to start a new routine. I mean, you and I were talking about this, like maybe at the beginning we needed to slow down and really rest. I know I am a deep feeler, so I sometimes can go into my hole and I'll feel for a long time. But we need to start to create a new routine that says, I'm going to try one new thing and I'm going to keep my routine or simple and small and manageable for X amount of time, 2, 3 weeks. Get your body used to it, and then you can begin to loosen up. But we have to be willing to make changes because the world is changing. And
Right.
so if we don't change with it and find ways, we can't find the hope of what else is possible. But if you add one new thing into your routine that's self-care or mindful, you will be surprised by actually how you can actually lift yourself up and out.
Now, I want to say something about that term of self-care because I think that it's been manipulated a little bit. And so, when you're saying self-care, you're not talking drop out, right? You're not talking because I think a lot of times people use it like I need self-care, therefore I am going to go pull the covers over my head and stay in bed for the next until COVID's done.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Right? Like, oh, I need to do bubble bath, I need to do this, but sometimes self-care is not
Oh,
comfortable, right?
oh, thank you so much for saying that. No, it is not. It is active. It is intentional. Like
Right.
if I'm intentionally watching Netflix, sure. But if you're honest and you're present with yourself and you're present with what your feelings are, you might be feeling a little sad. And so if you can actually say, and one thing you and I talked about this, the lifespan of emotion, a lot of us will sometimes, even as actors, we think we're deep feelers and we want to feel everything. It's not true. We avoid uncomfortable feelings all the time. The lifespan of emotion is 90 seconds. If you allow yourself periods of time to dip in, you will come back out with mindful body work, with mindful breath work. You set a timer. Even if you struggle and you do get stuck, set a 15-minute timer where I say lay on the ground versus the bed, because the ground is really grounding, so to speak. I remember the first week of COVID, total transparency, I was working with my clients via telehealth. My boyfriend started to have symptoms. I thought he had COVID. I was stressed. I was starting to feel anxious. I, between clients, would lay on the ground and practice what I preached. And it was hard, but holy cow, within 5 days, my system knew how to regulate itself, even without sometimes doing that.
Yeah, and you and I also again talked about Pauline Boss and her work in regards to ambiguous loss, right? And that one of the things that we've lost now in a pandemic, I mean, she started this in regards to people who had lost loved ones in war back in the 70s, and didn't have a body, and like, how can they grieve? And they have this loss, but it's not really a loss. But in regards to the pandemic, I think we also have a loss, the obvious losses, but we have the loss of routine, which I think is actually a bigger deal than any of us really realized. And so I've just started a new routine. I've been doing it for a little over 2 weeks, which number one is I'm not allowed to pick up my phone or my computer until I either walk or swim.
So good. So good.
And then the other routine I have is sitting on my porch. I have a little bench, which I really never ever used before, but I just sit there in the morning, and that's where I have my coffee, and I get to say hi to all the people who are walking their dogs or just taking their walks. And it gives me that little sense of connection beyond the four walls of my house, which I love my family, but man, I like seeing other people.
And in sort of like in person, not even just Zoom. I love that you created a new routine. I think that the sense of ambiguous loss, number one, we tend to want to fix. I love what Pauline, and I recommend all of you go listen to this podcast that she and I are referencing, but she talked about Western thinking and how we really like finite answers, fixing things, which, hello, let's not do binary thought. Like, that is a wonderful way for society to run. We can accomplish so many things, but loss is not always something that we can stamp a thing of closure on. I also want to sing her praises for talking about there is no such thing as closure when there's loss. I don't mean that to say to scare you, but to more give your system space to feel what it needs to feel, because it will ebb and flow. You will find its own rhythm. And so having a sense that, number one, we're not here to fix anybody else's feelings. We're here to listen, understand. Actors know this better than anyone. Putting your focus and being spacious for other people and present with them will teach us how to be present with ourselves as well, because I can't tell you how many times clients say, well, what do you think I should do? And I'll say it. I'm like, fine, let me just go there. I'll give you an option what you should try. They don't want to hear it. They just want me to be with them and to acknowledge that they feel something.
Right.
So having a routine, like you're saying, of slowing down is about letting your body space in the morning to say, where am I? If you're inundating it with media, noises even, unless it's like really grounding, just tell your family, tell whoever you're working with, wake up half an hour early. This is the uncomfortable stuff we're talking about. If you can't do it, then you have to create space for it. It's taking personal responsibility for why it's not working. Is there something within your control that you can do? Because nothing else is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's the thing that this was a suggestion. I was reading a little bit about stoicism, which is another form of mindfulness or whatever, but this idea of being still. But also it was recommended to, not allow for other things to dictate how I start my day. And if I look at my phone or if I start getting on my computer, then all of a sudden these needs of all the emails or any of the other things, the social media, the news, that is dictating that that start of my day. I no longer feel like I'm in control. And it has made a big difference, not having my phone by my bed anymore, all of those types of things. So that ritual, I also think gives you a feeling of control, of centering that way, right? In a time when we feel like we don't have control over much.
Yeah, I feel like control gets a bad rap for the word, but control is necessary to make things run sometimes, even our bodies. And I love the way you're talking about your routine. It makes me think of the concept of being passive or active with our choices. Going on Instagram in the morning, or even email, I'm passively just letting people tell me where I should direct my attention versus
Right.
where am I? What do I feel that I need? What's my routine? Whether it's I get a hot cup of warm lemon water in the morning and I sit with my dog and I read a certain book, and I force myself. If I can't do that with my phone next to my bedstand, maybe I should get an alarm clock by my bed and put my phone in my room.
I did. We've bought alarm clocks for me and my kids and everything. I mean, it's honestly, we haven't needed it since
Yeah.
the pandemic because,
Yeah.
you wake up when you wake up, which is also kind of nice. That has to be kind of, to not have to run around but at some point, we're taking it easy. We're making sure we give ourselves time. We have time now that we never had before. But when do we need to start feeling any sense of productivity? Because I'm not a productivity hound.
Yeah.
I think we were way over productive, and forcing us to slow down is a really good thing. But I also think that maybe prolonged inactivity might also not be the healthiest thing either. What do you think?
I think we're in the time in the season where we actually should start to move towards. I love that. I don't focus on productivity in the same way either. I think it's more about being really intentional with and being honest with myself. Like, what is it that I really truly need in terms of a clinical perspective? Past 3 months, at times is when we start to look at other symptoms, right? So first 3 months in response to a loss or an event. If it hasn't subsided, which normally a pandemic would end within those 3 months, and our symptoms have subsided, then we're fine. But if we stay in that same space past 3 months is when we start to need to make different choices, whether it's medication or routine. And so given a timeline, and the pandemic is still going on, we have to work with it. So now is a time to explore, what does it mean? You and I were talking about this. I know there's a lot of anxiety for actors. I think in particular why it's unique, this sense of anxiety or panic or depression, is because unfortunately this industry is really hard to have a semblance of control. We don't always know when we're going to hear back from all the work we put into an audition. We don't know if the money we're spending on our self-tape setup is going to amount to anything. That's what we can tell ourselves.
Right.
So we are prime to all of a sudden feel way out of control because those things have slowed down. And so you kind of have to get back to basics of what does it mean to feel connected to the work, connected to the why you started. The why is not about a setup. It's about love and connection to the art.
Yeah. And that's where I think even doing something in that artistic, creative way right now, I think if you got into acting in the first place just to, make a great living and stuff, you're in it for the wrong reasons anyway, right? It's just too hard. But to reconnect, like you said, to that original purpose, the love of it. But why do we love acting? What is it? What is it that we actors love about it? Well, and to tap into, I love working with other people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I like being in connection. I like having that give and take with another person and collaborating and ensemble work. That's tough right now. But it's still doable. I started teaching Zoom classes in May. I mean, I really did take March and April and most of May off. I was like, I don't know about this. It has been such a healing gift, not just to my students, but to myself as well. The connection's still there. Yeah, we all at the end of one of our sessions were like, I just want to hug you guys. Right? We missed that. But we did have all of the other beautiful things when you create these intense relationships with all actors have. We
Mhm.
all have these intense relationships with the people that we work with. And so I think, I don't want actors to just throw their hands up in the air and be like,
Oh,
it can't be in person. So,
what's
because
the
that
point?
connection is a really important mental health aspect, I think.
I mean, we're made for it. Think about it. We are attachment led beings. It's another focus
Right.
of the work I do, and which means we need to be safe, seen, heard, and held. We need to have mirrored experience, which can feel
Mirrored Meisner, if you
yeah,
think about
right.
that, right?
Have that over Zoom. Like I've been shocked
Totally.
sometimes the connection I can have with my clients, and some of us might have people we're living with, right? Where I can have
Mhm.
connection with their relationship. Some of us may not. Zoom and these classes, it's not about let me be ready as soon as it's here. It's let me be connected with my community. Let me know that I am not alone in this world. One thing that's helpful is we're all in this. So we're going through a collective experience. Take that in as truth. I'm not the only person going through this. Someone might actually feel what I'm feeling. That actually is a completely unique thing that hardly any of us have ever experienced in our life.
Right.
So, what are conversations you
And
can
creation is healthy, right? Like it makes you feel good, like it's purposeful. And I
have?
think, we do want to have purpose in our life, and that purpose doesn't necessarily have to be tied with, oh, I need to be ready for when the industry opens. I think the purpose can be, to be present with another human being. And what does that do? Like, I know you and I talk a lot about the different hormones, like the
Yeah,
different hormones that are necessary for being mentally healthy.
right.
Like, so what is connection? What is that kind of like even right now, me talking to you right now, I feel so much better than,
Right, I
right?
know.
So why do I feel better now talking to you? What is the chemical thing that's happening in my brain?
Dopamine, serotonin can be released, all these feel good, like oxytocin. Some of these are really driven by touch, but some of them, like dopamine, are ones that are feel good connection hormones. And so we have to, again, it's really hard. Some of us want to be passive. We want it to just end. We want it to just stop, but we actually have to make active steps towards connecting with other people. And so whether that's a Zoom call, a phone call while you're doing your dishes and doing your routine, or going out and people watching and even seeing what's like a person play with their dog at a park, these are really important for our body to experience, because we have to balance out the cortisol that's floating through our body and the adrenaline, which is designed for short periods of time. It's designed to come up, help us go into survival mode, take care of what we need to, and then dissipate and the water level to go down. It's not going down. So we have to work extra hard to make connections. It's not just going to happen on its own.
And that's what, going back to that idea of what we were talking about, is like, how is it different now than it was in the first month, right?
Mhm.
Where we had all that adrenaline and stuff. Well, maybe that adrenaline's not there anymore. And that adrenaline kept us really like engaging. And I mean, how many like different cocktail Zooms did I have in the first 6 weeks? And then I think about the last 6 weeks and I'm like, it's different. It's different. So, you know, now that the adrenaline's not there to get us through it, we have to kind of ask for like maybe serotonin to kick in, or the other things, right?
Right? Physical touch, even on ourselves, we can release it too. It's called the butterfly hug that they developed for post-traumatic stress
Oh,
disorder
yeah.
children
It
in
just
Mexico.
this.
Oh my gosh, like you'll start to feel like you start to get chills, and you just think, oh, that's nice. But if you actually do it, you're releasing there's a, you can even like touch your face and it can release it over time. It's called havening. But I think what you're talking about is something that actors sometimes, because we thrive off of like being in the room and being in the moment and playing and creating space.
Play.
Home, like you had a great idea. You're like, jump on your bed, like
Right?
do random things. Try one new activity that stretches your brain, or try something new, or something you used to love. Like my boyfriend used to love to skate when he was in high school, and now he got new wheels and everything, and he's like going all around. Like he's an actor, and he's finding more creativity by activating a part of his brain that releases these good feel good hormones.
Yeah. So yeah. So when you're feeling sad, essentially you have a right to be sad, We're all losing a lot of different things, whether it's connection, whether it's our jobs, whether it's financial security, whether it's opportunities for our artistry, right? But then there are things we can do, which is really important to, and that just because we do it doesn't mean they're going to be gone forever, but it's living in the moment and dealing with that moment and trying to help ourselves feel better moment by moment, which again goes right back to the type of work we do as actors, which is living in the moment, being present with somebody else. I think the other thing, as we do reach out to our friends and stuff, for us to be, and we teach this in the Meisner work, which is don't try to fix it, honor it, mirror it, right? Like all of those things of honoring, leaving space instead of somebody crying and you saying it's okay, which is our way of trying to shut it down, just to be like, oh my gosh, you are really overwhelmed, right? It's so interesting how, I mean, I'm not surprised, so many of my students go into being social workers or therapists or psychiatrists or things like that, because I think there is something within acting study that keeps us connected to just being a human, right?
Your human feelings. You're saying it so well. Searching for a sense of, we talked about the students on the podcast on being about the book Man's Search for Meaning. I know that it's something I do in my personal life. I like a lot, where I will try to understand what I'm going through, and but it's head and heart connection and body, all three pieces. When you have all of those together, there's a sense of forward movement. It may not be resolved, but you're not just stuck. And so if you ever feel stuck, really get a sense of, in my emotions, right? Can I name them? Where am I feeling it in my body? Body work is so important. Where, stay with it until it moves, because it will.
Yeah, I love that you explained that like the shelf life of an emotion is like around 90 seconds. So if we know that, if we know that we are really angry, as long as we don't push it away, in 90 seconds, it will be processed, right? And you can move forward. But if you don't give it permission, then it's just going to stay there, right? Until it's like knocking on the door, like, hello, 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 hello.
Drive your bus, but give it a seat in the car. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not the driver's seat, but you can say, okay, I'm pretty angry, I'm pretty sad, and I'm pretty irritated. They're all in my bus today, but my adult self is driving the bus, and I can make choices because all of those are the feelings that are coming up. So what helps me when I feel angry? What helps me when I do this? Boundaries. But yeah, you have to name what you're going through. If you don't, it's going to come back up at some point, and usually in a really intrusive manner. So you might as well acknowledge it when it shows up, and just let it be there.
Right. We talked about this. I want to make sure we talk about this because I think this is something that's coming up with a lot of people. I know it was for me for a while, and it will probably come back again, but is this mental fog that seems to be very pervasive right now, where people, I am usually a very voracious reader, and I am just struggling to get through books. I have gotten through a couple of them, but my focus, my attention, I can't stay with something for very long. What is that? Why is that happening?
I actually got a quote from Psychology Today online, because it's so important to read about what's really going on with this. So it has to do with our prefrontal cortex executive functioning, which is what you and I are talking out of right now. It's what helps us to make sense, and we're
logic. It's our logic, right?
So brain fog, it's liken it to having a poor internet connection. Streaming quality of the video you're watching to lower. And since everyday activities like work, hobbies, staying connected with our loved ones all require concentration, focus, and decision making, brain fog can be a huge problem. And so our prefrontal cortex is being overridden by our limbic system, or our amygdala, that fight, flight, or freeze. It's completely taking over. This is not happening. I always tell my clients, don't try to reason your way out of it. Your best bet is to do some breath work, slow your body down, and let the dust settle, so your limbic system can say, okay, I've done my job, there's no threat, and then stay connected. Because brain fog is not, you can't just push through it.
Okay.
I want to tell you, that's a signal of oh, I really need to check in with myself. If I'm feeling foggy, don't just like, it's like, have you ever had a migraine?
Don't try to do more. Don't try to like be like, okay, I'm going to make my checklist now, and that's
Oh,
going to help me through it. No, step back. Is that what you're saying?
slow down for like a
Okay.
hot second. It doesn't have to be 4 days. It can be 30 minutes, you know, and then do one simple, like actual physical test that you can complete. Do that one load of laundry. That'll, you'll feel, I like,
Yes, yes. Because you know what? I think just having tiny little victories.
yeah.
And yes, doing your laundry is a victory, right?
Yeah.
That's why everybody was like baking bread at the beginning.
Yes.
Like it was like, first of all, it smells good. It touches on all of the sensory things and stuff, but it's something you can do.
Yes.
And then you feel good and you have a little victory, and that,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a little thing. Eventually maybe our prefrontal cortex will come back.
Well, one thing too is we're used to having diverse stimuli throughout the day. We're not getting that. So again,
Mm-hmm.
you have to build it in, whether that's a new course or a new
Okay.
hobby. So
Okay.
I don't know what, you have to kind of help it. You have to
So
help
that
them.
could also have been a reason why, like myself and all of my students, we were feeling so like almost like high at the end of 2 hours of working with each other, because it was that different stimuli
Mhm.
2 times
All
a week.
the diversity of it, whether it's like
Gotcha.
tactile, like you're creating something with your hands, to meeting a new person, like new classes. It's amazing. You're meeting so many new people, like you
Right.
said, across the world.
I know. We have people from all over the place, like Atlanta and Tokyo and Poland. And LA, of course. So yeah, but that makes a lot of sense to me now. That why I'm like, the work is the same. Why is this so, like, I literally just felt so alive at the end, as did everybody. And that makes sense. It's we're without that stimulus throughout the day. Everything's the same. That's why I don't know when today's Monday, I guess, but it could have been Thursday. It all kind of seems the same.
Yeah. 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 Use your five senses. Get back to that creative space of smells. Get back to textures. That's why I think I personally love cooking. So it's a great way for me to experience all of that, because you're trying new
Right.
things all the time. But find your thing. Maybe you go on a long drive because you don't feel safe to go places, but you go to a long drive to a beach and you sit out and you listen to a new
Yeah.
podcast, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I love that. I love that. So I guess I just want to ask you if there's one thing that you, or two or three things that you would like to just give to actors as advice in regards to, as we move forward, because clearly here in LA, at least, this is going to last for a while. Maybe it's not going to be the hardcore quarantining, but the caution, all of that, I think we're thinking at least until January, right? So throughout the rest of 2020, yay 2020.
Yeah, right.
Um, what what suggestions or things would you give to us to keep our artistic um soul? Because I think being an artist is so healing,
Yeah.
and I think when that went away for a lot of people, that feels like depression or whatever. So what are some of the things they can do to continue to heal?
I think that for me, I have found like I've been doing more work on scenes and work on certain monologues with the person I live with. That's been one really helpful thing. I'm watching movies I love and television that I love, and then I'm kind of transcribing it and I'm working on it in my
Oh,
own way. It also helps with self-tape skills, by the way. Like, find a scene that you feel like you'd like to do, transcribe it. It can be 2 pages, and work on it over Zoom.
Isn't that wonderful though? Because in the past, I think like we would say, "Oh, I love that scene. I'd love to work with it," but I don't have the time to transcribe it.
Oh, such
We
BS.
have time. We have the gift of time now, right?
I do it all the time now, and I have written a whole list of movies and television show and actors that I love, and I just search and I watch them for fun. And then if I see something I like, I'll take the 10 minutes to transcribe, put on my files. And that's been really fun work too, because now there's no pressure. Think about, you guys, like, you're not I think we think auditions will be fun, it'll make us feel better, but it feels actually really good to work on something without pressure and to explore the craft
Just do it for the artistry, do it for the love, right?
itself, for your work with whoever you're working with, and maybe do a scene that somebody else wants to work on too with you, and then you can do it back and forth over Zoom. Who knows?
Because I think it's a little absurd to continue to work only with the expectation of, keeping things sharp for the industry. We don't know what the industry is going to be, no matter, and nobody wants to think they know what the industry is going to be more than the industry.
Mhm.
Like, so you can't believe what they're saying, but do it for the love of it,
Yes. And
and you
it's
get to indulge.
like I have 3 accounts. I have one for my dog. I have one for my normal, I have 2, and one for my actor. And I don't go on my actor one as much because I notice I feel anxious, like, oh, someone's getting a call back, or they're working on this. Don't play the comparison game. We don't know anything. It might open up and shut down. So you don't have control over that. What you do is, do you like what you're working on? Are you getting something from it? What did you learn about your craft? Your process. Like, my process has completely changed in the last 6 months, which has been really fun. It's
Awesome.
hard, but fun at the same time.
Because you have time.
hmm I have time. I've given myself that permission. I've also been paying very close attention to my body. I used to not be someone that liked to work out because I thought it was too hard for me. And now I work out 5, 6 days a week, and I do strength training at home, and I do other things too. So whatever your thing is, walking is exercise, yoga, stretching, you have to stay connected to your body.
Yeah.
If your thoughts are, if you're up here and you can't get into your body or into your feelings, or don't worry about the feelings, just start moving it. Breath to movement,
Right?
yoga.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I said. Jump on the bed, that it, do something with your body. The body can trigger
Mhm.
the mental change, right?
One other thing for those who are living alone,
Oh
um,
yeah.
it's easy for us to say if we're living with people that we're connected to, but if you're living by yourself, this might sound strange. It's not to make you antisocial, but I remember when I've gone through loss in my life, I listened to podcasts so much. And honestly, you guys, it helps you to feel less alone. It's giving you new information. It's not inundating you with too much stimulus. Put headphones on and listen to podcasts, whether it's a story driven one or one that has meaning to it. You will they're like your friends, but like you'll
You
feel
do
like,
feel like they're your friends and you're just sitting at the table listening, right? That's
yeah,
the great thing about them.
yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. People that live alone, they have their own challenges. People that live with others have their own challenges. I mean, I don't know that
no,
we just have to recognize them.
yeah.
And I love the fact that you have given us some of these things that we can do that can kick in these positive hormones
Mhm,
when, the cortisol is probably off the charts for a
mhm.
lot of people right now, and they don't recognize that. So, well, thank you, Miss Amy Burdick, for
Well,
talking to us today. I really appreciate it. And, anybody that has any questions about it, you can contact us and I can forward your questions to Amy, and maybe we can, just if it's very specific, we can still tap into all of your wealth of knowledge in regards to this. Thanks again for meeting me today.
yeah, thank you.
Have a good one. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.